Hello, I'm Don Moores, moderator for this forum of the general election for County Executive of Montgomery County. Our two candidates are Isaiah Leggett and Jim Shalik. This forum is hosted by Montgomery Community Media and sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County. Lynna Barnes, president of the League, is here today as timekeeper. I want to thank everyone here at MCM and the League for all the hard work that went into coordinating this forum. I also want to thank the candidates for sharing their time with us. Participating in forums like this is important to give voters the information they need in order to make informed choices at the polls. We plan on having a lively discussion, exchange of ideas today. Here is the format. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute and 30 seconds to make an opening statement. Following this, the candidates will be asked to discuss a series of topics. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for an initial response, followed by a back and forth exchange between the candidates before we move on to the next topic. I may ask follow-up questions as needed. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for a closing statement. Today's topics and questions were prepared by the League. The order of the opening and closing statements was determined by a random draw. Let's begin the County Executive Candidate Forum. I believe, according to our draw, Mr. Leggett, you're up first.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to serve you for the last 8 years as county executive. It has been a real challenge due to the ongoing national and international recession. As a result, we had to do some very difficult things, closing $2.7 billion in budgetary gaps, eliminating 10% of our workforce, and doing a lot of things that we did not appreciate in the times of the past, but we know right now the right things to do. It has resulted in very good things for Montgomery County. We are a AAA bond-rated county. We preserved and maintain over 14,000 affordable housing units. And as a result of our stewardship and leadership over the last 8 years, Montgomery County now has the highest financial reserves in the history of the county. That comes about as a result of leadership. Leadership where I served for 8 years as county executive, 16 years as a member of the county council, 3 times as council president. Prior to that time, I served in the U.S. military as a captain with service in Vietnam. I served as a White House fellow, not a White House intern, a White House fellow. I've served also on a number of boards and commissions in Montgomery County. That leadership has paid well for Montgomery County, and today we're in very good position, and I believe going forward we could be in a better position. Thank you.
Mr. Shalik, your opening remarks.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I bring to this race a priority of public safety. In today's world, unfortunately, that has to be the county executive's main responsibility. And I moved here 25 years ago to work in the Justice Department, but before that I was a prosecutor in New York. And in the Bronx, as an assistant DA, I prosecuted David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer, for 3 murders in the Bronx. Not only have I seen what evil can do on television, which we see every week, and in the newspapers, which we read daily, I lived it. I saw firsthand what evil can do to a family and a city and a nation. I propose a uniform police presence at all of our schools. And in addition to that, we've got to get our kids out of trailers. We've got 10,000 kids in trailers. They're unsafe, they're unhealthy. Those are my main priorities. And as the evening goes along, I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. But those are my priorities, and I think in today's world, Montgomery County is too complacent. We've got to be ready in this world for terrible things, and I promise you that we will be.
Oh, very good. Thank you for those statements. Let's go ahead to these various questions. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out this question. We're going to go back and forth. Each of you will have a chance to answer in 30 seconds, and let's have a discussion afterwards. So, Mr. Shalik, why don't you go first on this one since you went second in the opening statement. Transportation funding. There are several transportation projects that need funding in Montgomery County that will involve federal, state, and county money. What specific steps would you take in Annapolis and in the county to find the money necessary so that the county can pay for its share? And follow up with that is, do you support a local gasoline tax to provide us with the transportation funds that we need?
No. No on the tax. We have too many taxes. Property tax, rain tax, sales tax, income tax, it goes on and on. No more taxes. You know, I'm not a mass transit guy. Montgomery County to me is a car-driven community. You know, moms and dads get up in the morning, they got to make 12 stops during the day. Soccer practice, the cleaner, the dentist, pick up the kids. My view is that we have to solve the car traffic problem. And I don't think these very billion-dollar expensive mass transit projects are the answer for a community like ours. So I want to see road work and road congestion are dealt with first.
Mr. Liggett.
If you're interested in economic growth and development, you're going to need mass transit. There's no way for the county to afford to build our way out of the traffic situation that we're in today, as well as prepare for economic development for the future. The only way we can get there, in my opinion, is by mass transit. I've not only advocated for, but I was successful in getting the state to pass the recent tax that in effect will provide Montgomery County with about $1 billion in order for us to solve our transportation challenges. I don't think that there's a way we can get beyond that unless we have mass transit.
Well, let's go down. Get your thoughts, each of you, on these different priorities. How would you prioritize these following transportation projects if federal funds don't come through and we have to make choices or they don't come through adequately? First, highway repair and construction. Mr. Liggett.
I would provide that probably as the second choice for us in Montgomery County.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my first choice.
Okay.
These other projects are much too expensive.
Bus rapid transit, BRT.
To me, second. Buses are second.
Okay.
That's third.
Okay. Corridor Cities Transit Way.
I would place that along with the Purple Line as probably number one, and that's based upon our master plan for transportation, and those are the top priorities, the Purple Line, Corridor City Transit Way.
Yeah, on the Purple Line and the corridors, I'm not in favor of either one of them. You know, I just don't, I think they're too expensive, and the corridor thing is going to disrupt traffic and cause more congestion than it's worth.
Okay. Well, let me throw one out to you then. Purple Line as the last one. How would you prioritize the Purple Line?
I'm not a Purple Line guy. Too expensive, billions of dollars, and it's not that long a transit ride, and I don't think we get the bang for the buck. Billions of dollars, but people are in their cars. You know, you can't make 12 stops during the day with the kids in the car. On the Purple Line, we're car-driven, and we got to concentrate on that.
Now, all the projects you just mentioned, absent federal dollars, we cannot afford to do the Purple Line. So if you do not have the federal dollars, we certainly cannot do that. That's a $2 billion plus project that Montgomery County cannot do. So it would not be at the top of the list absent federal dollars. But if we have the federal dollars, it would be at the top of the list.
Is it something that the county executive, is it a key part of the county executive's job to find federal dollars for these projects?
Oh, yeah, the county executives have to find money wherever you can find it. Absolutely. You find it in the state, the federal, private sector. I'm a private sector guy. I want the private sector involved in projects too. So you get it where you can. You know, I'm not looking anywhere but everywhere to get money.
Well, it's not a question whether or not you should prioritize to go to the federal government to seek revenues. It is to have a plan and to implement that with the state in order to be successful in that. Mm-hmm. Every jurisdiction around the state is going to go to the federal government for resources. The question is, what is the plan to get the resources and how would you implement that? And this is why we need to have a plan that includes something like bus rapid transit so that it's not only something you're going to advocate for, but it is viable within the federal sector.
Let me follow up. Shalek, you mentioned private sector funding because we don't really hear much of that in this area. Northern Virginia seems to have a lot of that. Other parts of the country have that. Follow up, what are your thoughts on private sector funding for our transportation needs?
To me, business recruitment is the engine for economic recovery. We have to go out and recruit businesses. I would give them tax breaks for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. Jack Kemp, who was one of my heroes, said we should set up enterprise tax-free zones, bring in corporations, and then, with those incentives, have them contribute to road work and things around their facilities.
Well, I'm not quite sure I understood what he said there. But if what you are saying is that we need to provide tax zones and enterprise, the county and the state already does that. The question is, how are you going to bring in the private sector to help and assist in that? The only way you do that is you have to work with them. And as a result of that, you have to provide resources and a plan that will be implemented. And that implementation requires some level of support at the local level.
No, I agree. You got to work with them, absolutely.
Well, let's leave transportation for a second, and let's move to education. A hot button issue in our county. And we've got two parts to this question. So Leggett, you're first here. First, is Maryland's maintenance of effort law for county funding for schools fair to Montgomery County? And second, how would you maximize the county's education funding from Annapolis?
Well, clearly, in my opinion, it is not fair. The question is, how do you change it? And I'm not sure that you will change it overnight. So we have to work with the existing law, but I think that the existing law needs to be moved or changed to some degree. And there's some things that I've advocated, and I will continue to advocate when I become president of MACO next year, to assume that we can make those changes. So it is not fair as it relates not only to Montgomery County, but also other counties around the state, because it does not provide the level of flexibility that you need in order to offset some of the difficult challenges you face in difficult economic times. Mm-hmm. Now, as it relates to Montgomery County and how we prioritize that, if that's the part of your question,
right.
We need to continue to build on what we've already started. That is to make certain you get the dollars that we need back from the state. Secondly, to make certain that the people in Montgomery County believe that they understand that they have an excellent school system. We have a generous community that has invested a great deal in education. They will continue to do so long as the school system produces the kinds of results that we want. So we need to make sure that we work hand in glove with that. For me, education is my top priority.
Okay.
This is a failure of the Democratic administration here and in Annapolis. You know, they're all Democrats, and yet we get a fraction of what we send to Annapolis back. And that's a failure of the Democratic Party. You can't blame the Republicans for any of this. We got nobody in office. But you know what the problem is? The Board of Education gets $2 billion, that's with a B, $300 million a year. But 90% of it goes to teachers, salaries, benefits, retirement funds. So there's no money to do anything else. And that's why we got 10,000 kids in trailers. And you know, when you have 90% of a budget going to salaries and benefits, and you know, God bless them, they do a great job, but there's no money to do anything else. And that's been perpetuated by the Democrats in office and the support of the teachers union. And it's a cycle of that, and there's no money for anything else.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that 90% is correct. And secondly, in the school system, programs and services basically mean teachers and administrators. And if you go to almost any system anywhere in the country, you're going to find 80, 85% or 90% going to personnel. That's the way it works, because the school system throughout this country is built around teachers, administrators, and principals.
Give some specifics. What would you like to see done to change this balance? You talk about the portables that the students are in. How do you get them out of portables? What's the Shalek plan?
Well, that's a priority. You got to think out of the box. School construction obviously is the best. You know, that's the most secure facility. But you got to think out of the box. To me, it's a safety factor. You know, there's only one way in a trailer, no bathroom, and temperature control is often not working. You know, a guy comes with a gun to a trailer. I hate to be such a down person, but in today's world, guy comes with a gun, is at this portal of the trailer, it's all over. So we got to get him out of trailers. If you can't build the school system, build the buildings that we need, think about renting space or using abandoned buildings. You got to be creative. You know, construction is first option, rental maybe, and using, you know, vacant buildings. But we got to get them out of trailers. You don't work in a trailer.
No. Comments?
Yeah, no one disagrees you should not get out of trailers. And I think if you look back over the history of our county, for a long period of time, we've had some in and out of trailers. The question is, how do you pay for that? And that's going to cost additional resources, additional monies to do so. Construction of schools in Montgomery County is a very high priority, and we've worked very hard. We have 154,000 students in our system today, and there's no way for us to get them out of trailers without the implementation of the resources. So the real question is, how do you find the resources in order to do that, to get them out of trailers? Not the people who now want them out of trailers. Even if you go to rent additional office space, vacant buildings, that's going to cost money to do so. Transportation to get there will cost money to do so. This is why we are pushing in Annapolis across the board to make certain that we enhance educational funding. And I think that we have a pretty good shot over the next year or two to get that additional funding, a dedicated fund to deal primarily with the increased enrollment that we've had over the last couple of years.
Well, Don, if it's such a priority, you know, Ike's been in office 24 years, and the kids are still in trailers. So nothing's been done. So that, you know, we got to do something, and it's,
You get the last word. Defend yourself.
Well, I think things have been done. But you're not going to go to a system that you would totally eliminate trailers, because what that would mean that you'd have to overbuild the number of schools. And no school system is going to do that. When you have schools that are empty, then you have a different proposition altogether. So you're going to need this rotation and transfer of students in and out of some trailers or some temporary space. Otherwise, you're going to spend far more of the tax dollars than you otherwise would spend.
No, I will get every kid out of the trailer.
Okay.
Everyone.
Well, the kids that you'll get out of the trailers include kids of every country who've come here from every country in the world. Montgomery County is one of the most diverse jurisdictions in the country and in the world. And let's talk about diversity here. A recent county council report, Office of Legislative Oversight, discussed the gap between the diversity in our staff in the schools and the diversity in our classrooms. Extrapolating that out, what steps would you take to make the county workforce reflect the county's demographic mosaic? And I think you're up first.
Well, you have to make efforts to recruit minority and multilingual teachers, absolutely. Firemen, police officers, absolutely. Diversity is great, and the workforce should reflect that. You know, that's the way you got to do it. You just got to go out and recruit them. And with the salaries in Montgomery County, that shouldn't be hard at all. I'd like to be a teacher in Montgomery County.
But not in a trailer.
No,
no,
not in a trailer.
Well, everyone needs to recruit, and I think the school system, in fact, is recruited. But the real question is, you need to go beyond that, because if you look at what is happening through the pipeline in the educational system in many places, we are not producing as many teachers as we otherwise need to. If you look at the educational system, we need to make certain that we provide and grow our own to some degree. And you do that by going out and providing students with scholarships, get them into their education, and to help them so that you would have someone to recruit. But if you stand simply today on what's already in the pipeline, then you may be sadly disappointed. You need to not only recruit, but you have to go out and implement a plan that would grow the number of people in the educational system, providing scholarships to minority students and those with diverse languages before they go to school or while in school, so that you can then therefore bring them into your system, I think is a more effective way in order to get to the students that you want.
Are we doing enough to reflect our diversity in our boards, commissions on the county level? It's one of the issues that comes up, the league hears about and looks at.
I think so. When you look at my administration, it is probably the most diverse administration in the history of Montgomery County. If you look at the appointments that I've made across the board, I think it's clearly reflective of that great diversity. If you look at boards and commissions, you would also find that as well. I believe very strongly that we have a great, great county, great diversity. We are quite inclusive. We treat all people with dignity and respect. And so I think across the board, historically, not only in my administration, but if you go back in prior administration, you will find great diversity there. I think that we've taken it to a higher level, and I think you will see that and continue to see that in my administration.
You know, diversity is great, and you know, the more diverse, the better. I think you have to have a concentration on the front line people. You know, police, fire, first responders, because they're the face of government on the street, especially police officers. And unfortunately, in my experience, when a police officer is not of the same background as a victim or a witness, you don't have that communication. So I would start with police, fire, and first responders, because they're the face of government on the street every day.
In our county and diversity, I mean, both of you agree that diversity is good. Are there challenges that are still unmet regarding diversity in our community? I mean, you just mentioned something, you know, with the first responders and police.
Yeah, I mean, recently there was a report that people in a certain part of the county, the school system is not as productive as the schools in another part of the county. And that may reflect on the demographics. That's terrible. That's unfortunate. Everybody's got to get the same chance in life.
I think there's more than just racial ethnicity in terms of diversity that we need to look at in the county. It is also economic diversity. There are many places in the county where kids go to bed hungry, inadequate housing, that we've closed the gap in terms of affordable housing and made things easier. But that economic diversity, the lack of opportunity created by that, not only here but across this nation, is one that I think we need to pay a special attention to. Montgomery County is probably one of the most diverse places in all of America, and we are a model and an example to many other communities around this country. But even in Montgomery County, we could do better, and I believe that we are doing better. And if you look at the last 8 years in diversity across the board, we've made significant improvement, but I think we could do much better, and I intend to do so.
Well, in that regard, you know, I've seen that the true development, the high-end development, the stores, the apartments, the buildings, are in the west and north part of the county. And I agree with Doug Duncan. You know, we got to stop and we got to stop all the development in certain areas and concentrate on Wheaton and areas that are depressed, and bring in corporations and give them deals. And we got to start in those areas first. And I think there's been a priority in other parts of the county that's not fair.
But I don't know if you've seen what is happening in Wheaton, Jim. I mean, Wheaton has received under my administration a huge influx of dollars. There's a major redevelopment plan that's ongoing in Wheaton now that would bring parking, planning, permitting service, economic development into Wheaton. We have a huge influx of housing. The amount of housing, square footage in Wheaton is really unprecedented in many ways. And so we've made that investment and picked up, and I think you're going to see continuation, a great deal of development and redevelopment of Wheaton.
Well, let's use Wheaton, diversity. It's a nice segue into another topic near and dear to my heart. As you may know, I practice immigration law. This is a county of immigrants in many ways, in that diversity and that mosaic. So a couple questions about immigration. Next topic is not everyone who comes here is coming in peace. We have issues of criminal immigrants coming in a relationship with the Immigration Customs Enforcement, the immigration police, and some issues in the news just recently, you know, about the involvement, the interaction between the county and these folks. So, question I'd throw out to you. I think you're. Which one's? I'll go to you first. Mr. Shalek, what should the county police's interaction with the immigration enforcement officers, what should they be? What should that be?
Well, I believe that if someone's arrested for a violent crime or a serious crime, that the police should make an inquiry as to their immigration status. I mean, you know, if someone's speeding, I don't think that's necessary. But if someone's arrested for a violent crime or a serious crime, like, you know, he stole 10 cars, you know, people that are serious offenders or violent offenders, I think we have an obligation to find out their immigration status and report that to immigration authorities.
Well, first of all, the encounter with the police and someone maybe speaking a different language or look different should not be the first encounter that the police have with someone in that status. Because once you do that, I think you start from a disadvantage. I think you should have community policing that goes out, engages with the community, so that you do not have the kind of foreign dispatch relationship. You have a more cordial and ongoing relationship. Clearly, as I announced last week, Montgomery County will not detain people unless it is in compliance with the Fourth Amendment in terms of due process, probable cause. That's the position that the county has taken, and I think that is the right position. But the interaction with our police should be an ongoing one. I believe strongly in community policing, and you do that by having the police out in the community and having the community work with the police. But you don't do that the first time someone sees the police. It is their interaction. The first time the police talk to you is interaction of a crime.
Another area besides this has been in the influx of undocumented or unaccompanied children coming up primarily from Central America. Other states are counting undocumented minors in their jurisdictions, calculating the education costs, and then using that to go to the federal government for help. Mr. Leggett, what are your thoughts about that? Is this something, first of all, have these unaccompanied minors created a strain on our system that's hurting your ability, our ability, the county's ability to in the education area? And second, what should the response be?
Well, the strain is not there now, but I think unless we act appropriately and seek federal or state help, that strain will be there. We've been able to accommodate to the degree that we have an obligation to, especially in the school system, those resources that are necessary. But if the numbers continue, and if we are not, we do not have federal or state support for that, then we may very well see that strain in the future.
Well, my heart goes out to the kids that are caught in this terrible situation. You know, the parents bring them here and send them here. It's terrible. But I've asked Ike before, and I would ask him again in this show, I don't know if, and the people don't know if there's a problem in this county. How many of these illegal children and parents are here? How much is the county paying for them? What health facilities are used? And how many of them in our public schools? I don't think the public has the information that they should have to know whether we have a problem or not. And I'd ask Ike to tell us what the extent of it is.
Well, number one, they do not receive the public health benefit and housing, the things you just described. You can't get that unless you're a resident official citizen of the United States, so we don't have that information. Secondly, I think the school system is trying and will look continuously at the number of impacted students that are coming into the system. But we don't have that number because I don't think that there is a number that we can pinpoint today to give you precisely the number in our school system. I will say that there are probably some students that are undocumented in our school system, but it's not something which I place as a priority that we go around and making that sort of demographic number count that you've just described. And that's not something that I would do, but I would urge that you convey that to the school system. Maybe we have a better answer from there.
No, I would just ask, Ike, how many of these children are in our schools?
That's not a number that I would have. Those are numbers you have to ask the superintendent.
Well, let's go from immigration, diversity. Let's go to what, I mean, many folks, like, it's a nice segue here, that many of these immigrants coming in, engines of economic development. Let's talk about economic development. Maryland, the state of Maryland has a reputation of being business unfriendly. What can you do in Montgomery County to change this? Let me start off with you, Mr. Leggett.
Well, first of all, I think the statement is overly broad, but I think when you deal with perception for such a long period of time in terms of business, state not being business friendly, you have to act on that, and I think we should act on that. And I've urged and pushed very hard that we have streamlining not only at the local level but the state level as well. That we probably need to go back and look at some of our regulations and make sure that they are much easier for business to follow. And in some cases, and we need to evaluate this, we probably do need to roll back some of the taxes and problems associated with that related to the state. Overall, I think the perception is much greater than the reality, because when you look at it point by point with neighboring jurisdiction, I think you'll find something much better. We at Montgomery County have taken a very aggressive step in streamlining, a very aggressive step in trying to work with businesses, and I think that we're moving forward on that on a number of fronts. But I think we need to have some work done at the state level to make sure that some of those things are in fact changed.
Well, Ike's had 8 years to make it a business-friendly county, and we're still regarded as unfriendly. You know, you've got to lower the corporate tax rate, state level. You've got to make incentives for business to come here and stay here. You know, tax breaks, tax incentives. If they need a road built, help them build a road into their facility. You know, give them breaks so they bring in their employees, more taxes are paid. You expand the economy without taking money from the existing residents. And we're not business friendly. You know, if Don, you want to come in and open Don's cookie store, I want to have Susan in the county office say, Susan, meet Don, and Susan's going to get you through all the maze of taxes and regulations and everything. Got to streamline, make it easy for them to come here. We want them here. Business is the key to economic growth, not the government.
Well, I thought that going through the debate and you listen to some of the discussion that we've had over the last few years and so few months, it was clear that many outside the business community said that I've gone overboard for business. When you look at 100,000 jobs that are created in Montgomery County, redevelopment in Wheaton, the change in the laws that I made for White Oak, whereby we really drafted the changes there to make it accommodating for business, what we've done in White Flint and $100 million in county dollars, what we've done in the Seneca area, those are all very business-friendly things. I mean, I don't think you've looked at those things or examined those very carefully. And what you've just described, the county's already doing. We've been doing that for years. And I don't think that reputation that you've just described as county being business unfriendly is the correct one. I think that you're using these platitudes that have no reality in fact there, Jim.
You see businesses going to Virginia. When there's competition for a business, they go to Virginia. There's no question that we have a business unfriendly reputation. Anybody in the county will tell you that.
Well, anybody in the county is remaining here. Our unemployment rate is lower than Virginia, and I don't have evidence that you've just described, and I'd love for you to show us that, but business here are going to Virginia. I think just as many has come here, and we've just been just as successful. So you could say all of those things, but you have no facts to prove that, and you're demonstrating very clearly that you haven't examined those things very carefully. Well, to sit here and to suggest that someone is not business friendly, I think, flies in the face of reality here.
Well, let's go through some specifics here. We got a few seconds. Taxes, what would you do differently on taxes? And name some specific taxes that you don't like.
I hate the bag tax. I would do away with the bag tax. That's an insult. People are out there shopping and schlepping their thing, and you got to pay 5 cents for a bag. The bag tax must go. It's an encumbrance on business. It's a pain in the neck, all the paperwork. People hate it. It's got to go. I'd like to see a reduction in the property tax. You know, I would try and reduce all the taxes if I could. If you bring in business and expand the economy, and I promise there'll never be a new tax when I'm county executive.
Well, let's see now. You said you needed 200 additional police officers.
Right.
You said you're going to give tax breaks to all of the businesses and so forth, and then you're not going to change any taxes whatsoever. That's not realistic. First of all, the bag tax is relatively small. You don't have to pay 5 cents. We'll give you the bag free, Jim. That's free. So you don't have to pay for that. Secondly, I have not seen all of this discontent that you've described related to the bag tax. People almost forgot that it's out there today. Now, if you go back and challenge you with all of the programs you've suggested, reduction of all the taxes you've just suggested, you can't pay for the challenges related to school and construction, getting kids out of trailer. It doesn't add up.
Can I respond?
You can. And we're going to go to the next one after your response.
Well, first, I've proposed a 3% cut across the board in county spending. We have a $5 billion budget. That's with a B. So we can cut 3% out of that. You know, people take more than that out of their own income when they have tough times. You cut county spending by 3%, and I want to privatize the liquor industry. You know, we're the only county in the United States, only one, Don, that owns the liquor stores, warehouses, the trucks, all the assets with liquor. You know, you go into a liquor store, a county employee is selling you your vodka. Do you drink vodka?
Final word on liquor, alcohol.
No. It's not alcohol. But I think the central point here is about taxes, economic development. I think this is a good point. You stated a $5 billion budget, but I'm not sure you clearly understand the budget. Half the budget that you just mentioned, $2.3 billion of that goes to the school system by law. So if you're going to make a cut, you'd have to do the following. 2.3 comes off the top. Your debt service comes off the top. The public safety that you want to talk about comes off the top. When you add all of those things together, you're talking 80% of the budget. So if you're going to get the same amount of money you're going to get for 3% across the board, you'd have to hit libraries by 15, 20%. You'll decimate the rest of the budget because half of what I've just described is off the table. It doesn't add up, Jim.
You have to prioritize. Public safety never gets a cut under me, never. But that's a goal, to cut spending, and you start with the non-essential, services, and you do it. And you bring in $50 million right away on the sale of all the liquor assets, and then millions more each year. You prioritize.
But Don,
we talked about boards and
Don,
commissions.
I think this is an important issue here because I think he just indicated something. $2.3 billion is off the table. Debt service, 7 or 8% is off the table. Public safety you just described is off the table. What is left on the table is about 30% or 25% of the budget. To get what you want, you'd have to decimate it. You haven't given us an answer for that.
Let's go to a specific area that may or may not be decimated in that, and that's social services. Montgomery County depends a great deal on nonprofits to provide many of the services that the county provides. Is this system working? And if not, how would you change it? If it is working, how would you support it?
Oh, it is working, and I give them tremendous amount of credit, the sacrifices they make for all the people that aren't as fortunate as us. But here, I turn to the private sector. You bring in a business, you give them incentives and deals, developers. We've got developers building buildings, charging $3,000 a month for an apartment the size of this table. You got to work with the developers and private industry, have them contribute to some of the causes we have, helping mental health agencies, things like that. Private sector, help them to help us.
Well, I think the direction that we go really depends on our ability to work together. All facets are working together today, and we need to continue that. We have a very robust business community that I think is an envy of many communities in terms of its civic pride. Our businesses really contribute a great deal. The nonprofit sectors in the county contributes a great deal. we are finding greater efficiencies. The challenge for us is that as we've grown more diverse, we need to find more efficient ways in order to deal with the dollars that we have and the dollars that are coming in. Because the ways in which we operated in the past may not have been culturally, linguistically, and otherwise sensitive to many of the people within our communities. And so we need to work much better with those. That's the challenge for us, as well as the growing needs that we have in certain areas of the county.
How do we, continue on the social services, how do we evaluate the work that these nonprofits are doing? Is it something that, if we don't hear complaints, it's great, or are we getting as big a bang from our buck as we need to?
I would say in outcomes that reflect that hunger, for example, has decreased. Outcome that suggests, for example, that we've closed the achievement gap with those communities that are providing that. Outcomes, for example, we look at the number of people who need training in terms of language, in a variety of other areas. It's the outcomes that we look at. We will not resolve this until we see that there are no more hunger in Montgomery County, that everyone could get into an English class if they want to, and that people can get affordable housing. So it's an ongoing effort, but it's the outcome, the way in which we measure these things.
How are we doing?
Well, the outcome, you should never be satisfied with the outcome no matter what. Whatever the outcome is, it's always got to be better, because the people that are the least fortunate are the people we have to care for the most. So the outcome, to me, is always, well, we got to do better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I want to go back to something we stated earlier, because it's the foundation for a lot of what we're talking about now. That is the economic development and the prioritization of taxes and how you provide that and how you formulate a budget. And this is why I was so insistent on making sure we get Jim's answer to that. Because if you don't answer that right, you get that wrong, then nothing else that we're talking about would matter in the great sense of things in terms of economic development, social services, immigration, education across the board. So that answer that he provided earlier as related to how the math doesn't add up is a really significant thing that the voters of Montgomery County should look at.
Well,
yes, please.
Yeah, Ike says, the $2.3 billion education budget comes off the table. No, it doesn't. You cut in there because I think the administration costs in the Board of Education are tremendous. So nothing should be off the table except public safety, in my view. You can cut the Board of Education. You drive by the administrative offices, it's like Yankee Stadium with the administration, with all the cars. You can cut administrative costs, and you can cut areas. And when I say a 3% cut, that's an average across 3% cut in spending. No cuts in the police, but maybe other agencies you can cut 5-6%. But it's the whole philosophy that I disagree with Ike. Private sector growth is how you grow the economy. You bring in a business, you make a sweetheart deal, you bring them in, they bring in 150 employees, and those men and women are at the dry cleaner, the movie, the restaurant, the dentist, and that's how you grow the economy, with more people spending more and paying taxes. Government's not the answer to everything.
They tried that in Kansas, and it's not working. You can't cut all of these taxes. You can't add up the numbers that you've just described without decimating those programs. And so you need to let the voters of Montgomery County know what you're going to cut out, what you're going to allow to stay in, because if you leave education on the table, and yes, you can make some modest adjustments here and there, but there's something called the maintenance of effort law that's going to tie you into a higher amount of money you're going to pay virtually every year. And you take out your debt service, which is your mortgage, you take out public safety, you have very little left. So if you achieve what you've just described, it's not going to be likely unless you end up Montgomery County looking like Kansas in the future, because we've decimated everything else. And so you need to add those numbers up, and they don't add up based on what you've just described.
You read the papers every day. The main issue of the voters in this election is taxes. And you got to give them relief. Otherwise, they're not going to stay here once they retire, because we tax retirement income. So if we don't give people breaks on taxes, our middle class, our affluent, they're going to leave. Well, taxes are the main issue in this election.
Well, if you look at it, you were talking about Virginia a few moments ago. In Montgomery County, our property taxes went down about $17. In Virginia, that you model so much, it went up last year about $355. That's because Montgomery County took all of those very painful steps much earlier in this process.
Let's go to planning. Big part of what the county executive does is it's your vision for the county. But you've got planning boards, you've got other things that get in the way of implementing or supplement you. I don't know how you want to look at it. But what, if anything, let me start with you, Mr. Leggett, would you change in the role the county executive plays in planning our county?
Well, I'm not sure that I would change the role of the county executive. I think that what we can do is make the operations that we have today much more efficient. For example, I've been a very strong proponent of streamlining some of the processes, i.e. transportation, environmental planning, so that it's much more streamlined and so you do not have duplications. And I think we've gone a long ways in doing that. I don't believe that the county executive should be the chief planning officer. The county executive's role is to implement the plans and to provide a broad vision for which the plans are therefore acted upon. It is the county council with the responsibility for land use policy within the county, and they are responsible for that. It is my duty to lay out a broad vision, to execute the plans that are developed, and work in harmony with the institutions to do so.
Yeah, vision is the key. I agree with Ike. But my vision, you know, I've lived here 25 years, and it just seems that in government here, it's bring in money and pay the public employees, and there's no big picture here. I would love to see a 4-year university in this county with dormitories and athletic facilities. I would love to see pro sports here. And you know, bring in the private sector. There's a group trying to bring in arena football. Great. Minor league baseball, there's rumors people want to. We don't have big things here. We're bigger than 6 states. We got over 1 million people. And you want to see a pro sports event? You got to go somewhere else. You want to send your kid to college, dormitory life? You got to go somewhere else. We're the center of the universe in terms of education. The people that run the government and world leaders, you know, ambassadors, senators, they live here. And we're just spinning our wheels with money coming in and going out to the employees, and there's nothing special going on. My vision is to do big things and grow the county for the future.
Well, those big things will continue to cost money. Everything you just described, again, costs money. You're going to invest in a sports team, you're going to invest in the land, you're going to invest in the colleges. Again, you're spending money with no plans, no idea of how you pay for it, and no idea how you're going to go through those things. Now, in terms of the future, Montgomery County is a noted player in biotechnology around the world. We're about to become the same in cybersecurity. We are a AAA bond-rated county, which people come here all over the world because of the things that we are doing in Montgomery County. This is one of the best places in America to live, to work, to raise a family. So it's wrong to suggest that there's no thing for people to come here for. We have 1.1 million residents in Montgomery County with a very good quality of life that is the envy of many other places around the world.
Well, Doug Duncan gave us the AAA bond rating, you know, so that was before Ike was here. But there's no plan there's no big items, and you know, I have a big vision for the future. And you know, you can make the cuts and you can do everything if you have the will to do it. And there's no will. You know, Ike's been in office 24 years, and it seems like every election, the debate is the same thing. You know, 10 years ago when he ran, or 15, 24 years ago, I'm sure his debates sounded just like this one. And it's got to change.
Well, let me back up and give you a little more history. Montgomery County has had a AAA bond rated now for 37 years, so it's preceded Doug Duncan and preceded Ike Leggett. The challenge was, no county executive in the history of Montgomery County had to preserve a AAA bond rated in the midst of an international Great Recession. That's what Ike Leggett accomplished. Not only maintained it, but now we have the highest financial reserves in the history of the county. That's a little bit different than many other places, many other county executives in the history of Montgomery County. No one has achieved that. So we've had that long before any of the people you've just described.
Yeah, but why is the main issue on the voters' minds they're paying too much taxes?
That's an issue that I think is a legitimate one. But you have to balance that with a plan, Jim, that suggests what you're going to move, what you're going to cut, and how you're going to eliminate those taxes, and what it's going to go for. That's a legitimate question. It's not the question I'm asking. It is your answer, which is none, because you're not provided a blueprint of how you get to where you're going.
But I've never heard you propose cutting spending. In other words, you got to cut spending to lower taxes.
Jim, where have you been? We cut $2.7 billion of budgetary spending for the last 7 years. We eliminated 10% of the county's workforce. We furloughed county employees. We changed the health requirement. We changed all of those things. I had a budget for 5 years that actually grew 5 years, cumulative, 0. In the previous 5 years, it grew by 42%.
Ike, since you've been county executive, every tax has gone up. Can you name one tax that's gone down?
Well, I think there are some taxes that probably have gone down. The property tax just went down this year by $17.
Yeah, but it's gone up every year before that.
Well, it may do. It may go up again in the future, but that's a challenge that we make, and that's a priority that we provide, and that's the policy.
On the planning, let's talk about those people who are out of this discussion and probably maybe not be watching this, may not have cable. Folks who affordable housing. We've talked a little bit about affordable housing. Tell me, what is your plan to have more affordable housing in this county?
And we need more affordable housing. To retain our teachers to live here, our police, our firefighters. The key to me, I go back to the private sector. You know, we got these developers building, you know, skyscrapers and $3,000 a month apartments. You got to go to the private sector and work with them and have them contribute affordable housing. You know, work with them. They're going to make a lot of money in my administration. They're going to make a lot of money, and they're making a lot now. They'll make more. But in terms of what they get from us, I want to ask them to contribute to help us build more affordable housing.
Well, Jim, you may not know, we already have an MPD law that requires 12.5% contribution. Developers contribute that right now. Secondly, as we go through development processes, we have incentivized for them to do even more, and they've done so. In many places, they are well over 20% of what they provide. If you look at my administration, I provided more money in the last 8 years for affordable housing than anyone in the history of Montgomery County. And as a result of that, we probably have now close to 15,000 units that we've either preserved or built in Montgomery County, an unprecedented number. I was selected through this region for my leadership 4 years ago on affordable housing because people recognized that I had provided resources over and beyond what you find in many other jurisdictions. And that was done in the midst of a recession.
But we still don't have enough affordable housing.
Okay. Well, let's, two quick questions, and then we're going to go to the closing statements. First of all, turn to you and ask you the same question. 10 years from now, or let's say 10 years after a Shalek administration is here, what's Montgomery County going to look like?
I'd love to see a university with 10, 15,000 students on a campus bursting at the seams. I'd like to see sports arenas. I'd like to see a growing, diverse economy. I don't think we've grown under Ike's administration, and I want to grow and do these things and make it affordable to live here. And I think we can do that.
What's 10 years after the end of the Leggett administration? What's it going to look like?
I think we'll be well on our way to that 100,000 jobs that I've just described that we are growing under my administration. I think that we'll be well on the way of providing many of the additional houses we need that we've provided, the 15,000 under my administration. I think we'll be well on the way of maintaining our AAA bond rating because of the infrastructure that we provided. I think that we will have much of the transportation infrastructure in place because of my initiatives to get transportation dollars from Montgomery County. And I think we'll probably see a significant drop in the achievement gap based on the investment that we're making in education under my administration. All of those things, I see significant improvement. And I see the quality of life in Montgomery County far better than it is today, and we'll move forward and continue to be the envy of many places around the world.
You've got a lot of years in public service. You've had quite a few years in public service. Tell us a little bit about yourselves before we go into the closing statements, so the folks can get to know you a little better. What experiences, name 2 experiences in your life that you think prepare you well for the challenges you're going to see starting in January or December 2014 for the next 4 years?
Well, it has not all been public service. I've worked in my job for many years, have been teaching law school at Howard University Law School in Washington, D.C. But there are 2 experiences that I think will highlight it for me. One of which was growing up in poverty in Louisiana, one of 13 kids in a 3-room house, struggling through some of the difficulties and challenges that you see through life, recognizing that there's help out there for people, that this country is a generous country and you reach out and you help. I was helped along the way by an awful lot of people who supported me throughout much of my life. I demonstrated that I needed that help, and if I had that opportunity to get the help, that I would do well. So as a result of that struggle, the second would be the civil rights struggle that I was engaged in as a young person in the 60s, looking at how the country has changed, the hope, the opportunity, and having witnessed that and being a part of that, I think helped me in terms of the leadership that I had later in the military, in college life, in my profession, working as a White House fellow down the line. But it was the poverty, the challenges of living in Louisiana, 13 kids, the civil rights struggle that I think provided me with the inspiration to move on to the things that I'm doing today.
Mr. Shalek.
Well, I grew up on the Lower East Side of New York, public schools, married to my lovely wife Sheila for 40 years. I'm now a grandfather. I have 2 great kids. I guess the experience I bring to this, in this world we live in, is law enforcement. For 23 years, I was a prosecutor, assistant DA, assistant attorney general of New York State, and a prosecutor in the Justice Department in Washington. That's why I moved here. And unfortunately, in today's world, the priority has to be for a chief executive, law enforcement, public safety. And dealing with the Berkowitz case, which was world-renowned. I was chief of the Homicide Bureau in the Bronx for 3 years. I know law enforcement. I know the importance of public safety and police force enhancements, assets of communication. I know law enforcement like the back of my hand. And in today's world, with what's out there, I think that experience is crucial to prevent a horrible incident. We have to be ready, and I don't think we're ready. We're too complacent.
Follow-up question to each of you. Your political, your materials are out there, get to know me, why me, and all this. Let me start with you, Mr. Shalek. Give us one thing that the voters, you don't think the voters know about you yet.
I'm a grandfather. I became a grandfather recently.
What does that mean to you?
Oh, that's the greatest gift I've ever had. You know, it's a wonderful feeling. Family is the key to all, and religion. It's the backbone and you know, what motivates me. Love of family and God, and I'm just a good guy, you know. And the thing that bothers me the most on is that, you know, I'm campaigning. I'm the Republican candidate. I'm proud to be the Republican candidate. But so many people say, Jim, I can't vote for you. You're a Republican. A woman a couple of weeks ago said, I could never vote for you. I said, why? She said, do you hear what Ted Cruz said about immigration? I said, what do you want from me? The hardest thing campaigning as a Republican in this town is that so many people don't like Republicans because of what they hear on the national news. Our local Republican Party are compassionate, wonderful, caring people. And that's the most frustrating thing about running for office in Montgomery County. We care. Children first is what I believe in. And I just hope people look beyond party label and vote for me for my character and my experience.
Throw that out to you,
Well,
too.
Jim, I agree with you in terms of being a grandfather. It is a wonderful, wonderful experience. Yeah. And something that recently touched me with my granddaughter, I was recently at an event, a political event, and she was there. And I asked her, I said, would you like to go out with Papa on the stage and say something? And she said, yes, I would like to. I said, I simply want you to just say hello. And she turned to me and she said, should I say it in Spanish, English, Spanish, English, or French?
Yeah, that's good.
I was very proud of that. It almost brought tears to my eyes.
That's good.
Because recognizing that she has the capacity to do that was something that really touched me. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a great end to this. Before we get to our closing statements, Mr. Shalek, Mr. Leggett, please choose your language that you'd like to use. And each of you's got 2 minutes. Mr. Shalek, you're first.
Well, thank you again for having me in the League of Women Voters. You know, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ike.
Thank you.
Yeah, we basically said it all. I'm asking the voters to vote for me on November 4th because public safety is my priority. I want to keep our children safe. I want to get them out of trailers. Those are my priorities. In terms of the budget, I want to make it easier for you to live here, cut taxes, cut spending, make it more affordable to live here, and see as a goal these visions I have for the future. And I just hope you look at my candidacy and my other running mates on the Republican Party. You know, we're not the people you see on TV every night. We're the local party, and we care about children and families and the community. I've lived here 25 years. I love it, and I want to make it better. And I'm just asking the people to vote for me on November 4th, and I appreciate you letting me be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for hosting this, and thank the League of Women Voters as well. I love Montgomery County. This is a wonderful place in which to live, to raise a family, to play, to do all the wonderful things which people come to Montgomery County for. It is a county that I believe we can in fact improve on. So it's really not about the things we've just talked about in terms of the past. It's really about the future. It's about my granddaughter that I just talked about and what she sees for the future. It's about all those in Montgomery County who believe that we can do much better in terms of making certain that we have the jobs. And I want to be the leader that not only provides the foundation and infrastructure for that, but leads us into an area which we can all feel very proud about. To treat all people with dignity and respect, but to make certain that this is a county that we love, not just today, but years from now. To ensure that we have affordable housing, transportation that works. All of those things are part of our existing future, and it's part of what we will look to in terms of what we do for our children and grandchildren. This is what I love about Montgomery County. I've had the pleasure of leading you for the last 8 years. I hope that you compare the candidates, judge them on the merits, and make the appropriate choice. I look for your vote. Thank you very much.
I want to thank both of you and thank all of you and the viewing audience for joining us today. Once again, as I just said, thank you, candidates, for your participation. I'm going to go off script for a second, and that is, I hope let's all give them a round of applause. This is what Montgomery County is all about, of a good discourse. I'm not sure that Ted Cruz would approve. This forum is just one of the many programs that Montgomery Community Media is hosting with the League to prepare residents of Montgomery County for the 2014 general elections. Go to mymcmedia.org to obtain a program schedule for this and the other debates we sponsor. Also at mymcmedia.org, you can view a rebroadcast of this forum. I want to remind you that early voting will begin Thursday, October 23rd at designated sites around this county. On Tuesday, November 4th, the polls will open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. You can locate your polling station on the Board of Election website. Voting is a sacred privilege in America. Please choose to exercise your responsibility by voting in this year's election. And once again, I don't think that the folks who are far on the Democrats not wanting to talk to Republicans or far on the Republicans not wanting to talk to Democrats would approve of this. But we in Montgomery County approve, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you
and good night.